Well, seeing as we have our quorum and Dr. Matthews is joining us virtually until he can get here in person, I will call this meeting to order of the school committee on September 12th, 2024 at 6:04 p.m. And our agenda tonight is we'll begin with public comment, followed by superintendent, chair, and student remarks, and then moving into our consent agenda, which consists of surplusing outdated instructional materials, consideration of acceptance of the Winchester Educators Association donation of $962.20 for a new teacher orientation lunch, consideration of acceptance of a $5,000 grant from MCIEA for the English department, consideration of acceptance of $1,120 grant from the Enka Society for the art department at the Winchester High School, and consideration of approval of minutes from June 25th, July 18th, and August 8th. Then we'll move into report, update, and action items, including fall town meeting timeline and warrant articles, a draft of the FY26 budget calendar, and a first reading of Section D procurement and policy purchasing and procurement and policy JJF student activities accounts. We'll then have anticipated future agenda items, future meeting dates, and an executive session and adjournment. So with that, do we have anybody here for public comment tonight?
There's no one currently signed in, but
I saw Mr. Hopcroft send the little sign-up sheet around.
I see no hands either.
Okay. Then I will close public comment, and we will move on to the superintendent, chair, and student remarks. Dr. Hackett.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Good to see you all. I felt like I never left. So I think it was a great opening. We had a general assembly on last week, and then that was on Tuesday the 3rd, day after Labor Day, and then we had the
Staff General Assembly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
We had a staff general assembly on the 3rd, as well as our PD day that day. And then on the 4th, I actually did, because it was so popular, I think, I did 2 rounds of the General Assembly. Actually, it was more about, had planned it out completely in my head about the General Assembly, and we, of course, as you know, we had the election at the high school on Tuesday, so it kind of messed up a little bit of our timing on where to hold what. So we held the PD day on the 3rd at Bacall, which worked out well. We were able to get some lunch in as well, and I did a general assembly at noontime then with all staff, and those who could not make it then, I went to the high school on the 4th and did it again. So it was I think well received, and they had a lot of PD sessions on the 3rd with building-based time and meetings on the 4th, and then we brought the children in on the 5th. As we always do, as many of you know, transportation is always a little clunky in the first couple of days. We're working on it. We've made some adjustments already, and I think we're in a better pattern, and we'll continue to look at it if there are any areas where we're coming up a little bit early or too late. We'll continue to make those adjustments. The good news is the construction has not been like it was last year in town, and the town did a great job. DPW made that commitment to try to get everything done in and around the schools, so that was extremely helpful, and we're very grateful for that. But we still have the Lynch run, as you know. We're still transporting all Lynch students to Parkhurst, and that is another tier for us. So our in-between times are still really tight, which is partially bound by the teacher's contract as well, and so it is what it is. But I think we're getting closer and closer to really making sure that we're on time with everybody. So if there are additional if there's additional feedback, I'm not worried. I'm sure we'll receive it. Then on this week, we actually just kind of, I'm going to roll into the second part of this, just with literacy. We've had several meetings with the Collaborative for Educational Services. Just a reminder, we are working with them to pull together an early literacy team. And we met with them again today, actually. We kind of mapped out a roadmap, to use the word twice. And we have a draft of that. I'll be sending out a message to staff tomorrow to kind of outline some of that and outline our next steps. Some of the feedback that I did get from staff as part of last year and going into this year is understandably that we're going to make sure we're getting communications out to staff first before we put them out to the community. So we're going to honor that and do that. But we are anticipating that the work will begin in earnest. I feel like it's been in earnest all summer, but it will begin in earnest this month. We'll be able to get the early literacy group together and start into it. So I don't know whether Jen, or Lori, or Andrew have anything I missed in terms of that's worth adding? Okay, all right. That's all I have.
And you had said that Principal Karen, Principal Phelan are also key members of that effort?
Yes, so, yes, thank you. I feel like I don't like to be repetitive and redundant, so I don't have anything really new to add to that, but Principal Karen and Phelan, as well as Ms. Kirby, will be we're working together as a leadership group. Those are the meetings we've had with the collaborative, just to really talk to them and give them some sense of what we would like this to look like, and them also putting together some good outlines for us. So that was one of the meetings I had today. So we'll be communicating that out to staff tomorrow.
That's great.
All right.
So, let's see. Just a big welcome back to community members and school committee members, staff and student reps. We have stayed in touch over the summer, but this is our first in-person meeting back in the fall, so it feels like a big welcome. Also a big welcome to each and every one of our new teachers and students and their families. So I've met a few young families in the community this summer, or else new families in town who are new to town who are just beginning their journey with us. So we just welcome each and every one of you. Hope everybody has had a restful time this summer and that everybody is coming back refreshed and eager to go. I know the staff have been busy. Dr. Hackett was talking about that. There's been a ton of PD this summer and planning and work on Lynch, just to name a few projects. I personally think it's really stunning when I drive down the street and I see Lynch going up. Some photographs came, I think, from Mr. Marin today of the interior of the gym and the new rooftop garden space, and it's just beautiful and stunning to see. So exciting to see that kind of progress. And just for the community, it's the beginning of the year is always a busy time with all the paperwork, or now a lot of it's online, so I think that's exciting. But do look forward to your back-to-school nights at the elementary school, and I know the high school is having its back-to-school night open house on September 19th, and the McCall is on September 26th. So all of these keep coming up really rapidly. So that's all I have. Meher and Michaela are joining us again. Welcome back for your summers and all of your stuff. So.
It's good to be back. Students are definitely adjusting to the new start times. I remember getting to school like at 8:25 last year, so definitely a new change for me, but it's good. It gets me up earlier. In terms of updates, Student Council is planning a homecoming. There might be a homecoming this year, our first homecoming of actually like in all of history of like WHS. So this might be a new thing. It's kind of in the works this year or maybe even next year, just to get some planning going. Yeah, and we're just kind of setting some dates like in the book Yeah, that's kind of what's going on. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will also say that students seem to be off to a good start. It's definitely good to be back. It definitely did take a day or two for people to adjust to the new start time, but I think everyone seems to be settled in. Things are going well. I was going to say, Miss Bolognese already brought it up, that open house night is September 19th. I did want to say that the Red and Black Marketplace will be there as well, so sports teams and clubs will be selling their merch, so be sure to come by. We have some good stuff there, and you get to see what's going on at the high school. I think that's all from our side. More updates to come, though. It's good to be back.
That's great, thank you. Any questions?
Just for the
For the
record, it's
students.
5 minutes.
I was just going to say, I was
I mean,
I
just.
did the same thing.
I know, I know it feels like a lot. Okay, but for the public, just not like we didn't adjust it by an hour, so, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Every minute counts.
We didn't go back,
does
we
feel that way.
didn't go back to 7:45.
We did not do that.
That's true. It's good. It's better than what it was before.
Oh my gosh, it could be 7:45? No.
To his credit, I think Mr. Hopcroft just did establish the days are long and the years are short, isn't that
Right.
what you said?
But I will say that 5 sleep minutes are different from 5, like, afternoon minutes.
That's
Yes,
a very good point.
that's an excellent point. Sorry, my apologies.
Like an hour, yeah.
Yes. I did have a little feeling of nervousness as I was driving through town. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get to the high school on time? So, but, okay. I used to have 5 extra minutes. But, all righty, and let me just think. I thought there was an update from one of the committees, but no. Okay, actually, I know where that is. Never mind. 6:15. We'll just go ahead with the consent agenda, I think. And I guess we have the, I think I had read this off earlier, surplusing outdated instructional materials, acceptance of of the Winchester Educators Association donation for the new teacher orientation lunch, a grant from MCIEA, a grant from the ENCA Society. We are going to pull the approval of the minutes for this evening, just so that members have more time to read them. So with that,
Happy to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through D.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Dr. Matthews, if you can hear us?
Oh, that's. Dr. Matthews, consent agenda with minutes tabled.
If you would like to vote.
He is not there.
Do we know how close he is? Is he,
Maybe
like,
he's
walking in?
coming in.
Yeah, he may be.
Okay. Well, since we have our quorum, I will just go ahead and say that the vote is unanimous with the 4-0 vote, and Dr. Matthews will be joining us shortly. And then just a thank you to the MCIEA, that's the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Educational Assessments. And also to the ENCA Society. The ENCA Society had given us the grant for the art department, and that was for wood printing blocks and also the wood panels. So we always appreciate the support from our private community organizations. Thank you. Oops.
You're late, so you got the chair without the wheels.
What?
You're late, so you got the chair without the wheels.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, poor Dr. Matthews. No, no, no. Okay, we will move on to report update and action items, and we'll be beginning with fall town meeting timeline and warrant articles. So just as a heads up, do we want to pull that up onto the screen? The fall town meeting timeline? Otherwise, I can just verbalize it.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, but I have to
Rolling
scroll
into-
through. Actually, let's see.
This is just town meeting?
Okay, so town meeting, just so that everybody can be centered on, focused on the dates. September 23rd, a Monday, is when the Fall Town Meeting warrant will be closing. And then during the week of October 7th, the Select Board will be voting on the Fall Town Meeting warrant for publication. And October 11th, motions and the backgrounds will be due to the town manager's office. And for us, our important dates are town meeting will be opening on November 7th, and there will also be a meeting on November 14th and the 18th and the 21st. And with that, we'll just be discussing some of the articles that will be coming before Fall Town Meeting, and I think we'll begin with the Climate Action Advisory Committee, and we have the chair, Rick Eno, here to tee that up for us.
Where would you like me here?
If you would like to, you have it. Yes,
That way people can see you on
You have your own table.
that's right.
Everyone do their homework? Good evening. My name is Rick Eno, and I'm the chair of Winchester's Climate Action Advisory Committee. Sometimes we refer to it as CAC because there are fewer syllables, so I'll go back and forth with that. And we really appreciate the time you've given us here tonight. We're here tonight to brief you on and ask for your support on a key step that Winchester can take to implement the town's climate action plan. And the CAC mandate, just to be clear, is we're appointed by the Select Board, and we advise the Select Board and work with the Select Board to implement our town's climate action plan. And what we'd like to brief you on tonight is called the New Construction Energy Code. And this will be a warrant article at Fall Town Meeting. Now, why did we ask for time with you? Why are we here? And why is this important to the school committee? The Energy Code applies to all new buildings, including school buildings. Adopting this new construction energy code will make Winchester eligible for a new grant program that will provide funding for energy efficiency and electrification projects at all town buildings, including school buildings and fleet electric vehicles. And as you'll hear, taking steps to combat climate change is really important to our town's student population. But even more importantly, in our view, while we do this as a committee and volunteers for the town, Ken Pruitt's our sustainability director, we see the schools and the school committee as a real leader in this area. When you look at what you're doing at Lynch, this sets an outstanding example for the rest of this town. Lynch is our first all-electric and first net zero school building. It's completely in line with this new construction energy code we're talking about tonight. And the school is being constructed cost effectively, including with the receipt of a number of financial incentives, which is based upon the sustainability performance of Lynch. I personally think you should be really proud about what you've accomplished there and the road you're taking with the Lynch development. To meet the town's goals going forward, we need both the municipal and the residential sectors to contribute. Winchester Schools can help us do this by standing up and saying, yeah, this is achievable. We've done it, we're doing it, and you can be a real leader in this area, so we encourage you to do that. With that in mind, I'd like to ask a couple of our representatives on our committee to make a few comments. Now, importantly, when CAC was formed, we had one high school position. Then it became 2 high school positions. Now it's 4. We have 4 high school students who are deeply engaged in what we're doing in implementing our town's climate action plan, and we've asked both Vita and Catherine to provide a few words. So maybe Vita?
Hello all, I hope you're having a good evening today. So my name is Vita and I'm a junior at Winchester High School. I'm here to speak on the behalf of both CAC and the Winchester High community at the Environmental Club. Well, specifically, I'm here to talk about climate change as a general concept, but more specifically about what we can do about it here at Winchester. So, it's not just an issue that's far off in the future, out somewhere and who knows where. It's our issue right here and right now, and we should take steps to address it. So obviously we can't fix everything at the town level, but we can take action in ways that count. That's why the Stretch Energy Code is important. It's a meaningful step that we can take today, or, show our support for it. I joined CAC because as a young person, climate change has been shaping my life so far and will be in some major ways in the future. Ask anyone at Winchester High School, and they'll probably give you the same answer. The truth is, we're all a little worried. Most of us, more than a little. So we want to see action from our community leaders. And the Stretch Energy Code is exactly the kind of action we need. So, school committee, we humbly ask you to support us, students, So, school committee, we humbly ask you to please support us on our path to the Stretch Energy Code. And we thank you for the support you've shown us in the past. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce another one of our student members, Catherine Plosky.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Plosky, and I'm a 10th grade student here at Winchester High School. I'm here to express my support for the new construction energy code that we've been talking about. This past summer, I've been attending meetings with CAC, whom you just heard from, and they've been working very hard to get this energy code approved, and we're in need of your support. The reason that I was driven to work with them is because of how deeply climate change has the potential to affect my future. I know that many of my classmates, as Vita mentioned, feel the same way. For young people like me, climate change is not some far-off issue that we hope someone else will deal with. It's a very real aspect of our lives that we need to address. Between warming temperatures and more dangerous storms, if we don't act now, we risk the livability of our climate in the future. The new construction energy code is one of the many things that our town needs to do in order to ensure a safe future for us all. As the school committee, you are responsible for the lives of many young people. It is part of your job to not only think about our experience in school, but also our lives beyond it. I hope that this has led you to not only care about the future of us, but also the climate that we will live in. With that in mind, voting to support the new construction energy code would show the student body that you care about our climate change and our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love having the students as members of our committee. They bring a voice and a pulse that a lot of the more traditional members, longstanding members, we can't do. So it's great. Thank you very much. Now, Ken Pruitt will present very briefly, just to give you a little bit more background on the code, and then we'll wrap up our part of your agenda.
Andrew, do you have the slide deck that I sent in? I have it on a memory stick also, if you don't.
It's in our folder in
It's
the
in our
binder.
folder, Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you go under Fall Town Meeting items. Oh.
While he's pulling that up, again, my name is Ken Pruitt. I'm the Sustainability Director for the town of Winchester, also a 14-year resident. Both of my children went through the school system, K through 12, and they had a great experience. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you here tonight and speak on this topic. As the slides are coming up, it's a tough act to follow those two students. Catherine and Vita were far more eloquent than I'm going to be on this topic. I think I'm here more to try to just give you the nuts and bolts of this code. And Rick covered a couple of points as well. Here we go. Okay. So if we could skip to the next one. So as Rick mentioned, as Chair Eno mentioned, there are a number of reasons that we think this code is very important. Going back in time a little bit in terms of a precedent, back in 2010, Winchester adopted what's called the Stretch Energy Code. It's still in effect in town. It's a little bit more strict in terms of energy efficiency requirements than just the base energy code. Part of the reason we did that is that it allowed us to be designated by the state as a green community, which we were, and that made us eligible for grant funding under the Green Community Program for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects going forward. Since that time, we've brought in over $1.7 million in those funds, and that has actually been disproportionately for school buildings, because school buildings are overwhelmingly most of our square footage of town buildings, so it's not that surprising, but it's important just to point out that to date, the vast majority of those funds have gone to school buildings. Next slide, please. Today, the town has the opportunity to adopt an even stronger building energy code. Doing so would allow us to enroll to be eligible in a new funding program, a new grant program called Climate Leader. It's still within the Green Communities program, but it's more lucrative, and we would be eligible for significantly more funding, which I'll mention sort of how much in a moment, if we become a climate leader. And we expect that funding would just continue to disproportionately go to school building related projects. This next one, as I mentioned, there is a base code. Only about 50 of the 351 communities in the state use that code. In the middle, you see the stretch code. That's what is currently in effect in Winchester. And then what we'll be asking town meeting to vote upon this November is the new construction energy code, and 45 communities have already opted in to that code. Next, please. So this code was created by a 2021 climate law in Massachusetts, and it only applies to new buildings. It doesn't apply to renovations of any kind or additions of any kind. There are essentially two pathways. One is that if you build an all-electric building, as we're doing at Lynch, that complies presumptively with the new construction energy code. There's nothing further to do separate from the existing stretch code. However, if we wanted to include fossil fuels in a future building, which hopefully would not be the case, but if there were some reason to do that, it's allowable, but you have to make it easy to fully electrify in the future by pre-wiring for appliances, including the heating system. And you do have to put some solar on the rooftop as well, and I'll mention the quantity in a moment. And just to point out, we're calling this code, we're referring to it as the new construction energy code because the official title is obscure. It's technically the specialized energy code. So if you hear specialized energy code or new construction energy code, they're actually the same thing. Next, please. So if you look at this table, there's two rows, and they compare the current stretch code to the proposed new construction energy code. The first row is for an all-electric building. As you can see, because on this slide, the only differences between the two codes are in red text. As you can see on the first row, for an all-electric school, there would be no change to the current code. On the second row, for an office or school building that does use some fossil fuels, as I mentioned, you have to pre-wire for future electrification, which is much easier to do at time of building construction. Retrofitting a building later on to electrify is very difficult and expensive. And then you do have to do some on-site solar photovoltaic, and there's a formula there for that. Next slide. And so as our chair mentioned, the code is called for in the Climate Action Plan. There's a negligible difference in construction costs. There have been a number of studies on building all electric, and even if you need to pre-wire and do rooftop solar, operating costs have been shown to be lower. As I mentioned, 45 communities have already adopted the code. I've spoken with the building commissioners and others, my counterparts in many of those communities, and they've said there really hasn't been an issue. It has taken just a little time for builders and developers just sort of to be aware that there is a new code and learn what's required. But again, it's not that different from the stretch code that's already in effect in most of these communities. And again, it allows for additional funding to the town and to the schools. So in terms of that new funding, as I mentioned, to become eligible to be a climate leader under the state program, you have to adopt the code. And you're then eligible for more funding. You still receive the normal grants under the Green Communities program, and the town has been receiving about $100,000 a year in those Green Communities grants. You can still get those, but then you're eligible for additional funding. The state is going to announce roughly how much sometime this fall, but in conversations offline that I've had with their staff, they've said they expect it to be somewhere in the $100,000 to $200,000 a year range. So we'd be potentially doubling or even tripling the amount of money that we bring into the town through that program. And new schools that meet this code are actually entitled to an extra 3% reimbursement from the MSBA for MSBA-funded projects. And so for the Lynch School, that's about $2 million. Now, technically, you don't have to adopt the code as a town to be eligible for that. You just have to build your buildings to meet the code. The point there is that there's already a great incentive for us to be meeting this code, so why don't we, as a town, adopt the code and take advantage of all the extra grant funding through the Climate Leader program if we're going to be building schools to this standard anyway. And next, this is just a list of the communities that have adopted the 45. The 3 in gold directly border Winchester. More are adopting all the time. And then the next slide is just a visual representation. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see our immediate neighbors, Winchester circled in red, and you can see that most of our communities, certainly to the south of us and nearby, have adopted it. That might be it, yes, and that is it. So happy to answer questions or bring our students or chair up as well, whatever you like.
Excuse me, are there questions from committee members for Mr. Pruitt or Mr. Eno or Vita or Catherine?
Is there a request for us to take action on this tonight, or this is an informational presentation?
Make an additional statement.
Sure,
The
absolutely.
former, I have many questions.
Hi, so sorry to come up here again, but I believe I called the new construction energy code the stretched energy code, so I don't want to cause any confusion, but I did call it by the wrong name. That's my bad. I apologize for that. But yeah, just to clear up any confusion that might result from that. Thanks.
Thank you. So I think the question was, if I am summarizing this correctly,
Want me to say it again?
is there a particular action?
Does
that-
Mr. Pruitt need action from us
Or-
tonight?
Why don't I
Mr.
turn
Eno.
that over to the
Mr.
chair
Eno.
of
Mr.
climate
Eno.
action for the.
Is this an informational presentation, or is there an action that you're seeking we take tonight? And can you
We
help us
would,
understand what that is?
we think it would be fantastic if the school committee could vote in favor of this and supportive of the town adopting this code.
So, Mr. Nixon, I note that there's not a vote on our agenda tonight, but I wonder if tonight, if we could come to consensus that we generally support this?
Just to clarify, I didn't have a chance to answer your question before. It was not our intention to ask the committee to vote tonight, because this committee, like all committees, does not like same-night action. There's a lot here.
Yep.
And given that there is time between now and fall town meeting, I felt it was important for you to have this presentation, have a chance to ask questions, and I don't know whether there's I guess my question for you is whether or not, Ken, or is there a timeline, deadline for when you need to have some kind of supportive action from the school committee? Because the committee does meet again in regular session on the 10th of October.
It's in advance of fall town meeting, of course.
Yes, yes.
And I do fully understand the need to look at things and talk about it, and the same night votes are difficult. But we feel very strongly that the school committee could be a leader here. It's completely in sync with what you're doing, and it would be great to help us achieve this for the town to unlock the funding that Ken described.
I wonder, it strikes me that, picking up on Ms. Bergstrom's question or point about coming to consensus, it strikes me that we're ahead of schedule because we didn't have public comment tonight, and you guys are here now. Should we tackle some of the questions and see how far we can get in terms of reaching consensus at least, and then take the time, vote it when it's appropriate to vote it. But I just hate to keep pulling these guys back.
Right.
So
multiple
if you
meetings.
have questions, then I think we
If
could
it
go
suits the
ahead.
chair, I mean, because everybody's here. It's
It's
I think it
informational.
would be helpful for us to sort of react, and if we have questions,
Mm-hmm.
we have sort of dispositions towards things, I do think it would be helpful for us to share that.
And it's an informational session, so yes, we would be,
We would typically actually want to see an article before we vote on an article, so we know kind of the substance of what the presentation is, of course. So it would be good if we could have some discussion.
informational, that's, so I figured that we would also be asking questions if we have questions.
And I think it's also important to note for those of us that are on the policy subcommittee, we have already had the pleasure of having some of you at least speak. So we at least had Mr. Pruitt's presentation and had a chance to, that was also a public session, but obviously much more lightly attended. So at least on my part, I don't have any further questions because we got to have some discussion in that forum, but I just want to put it out there that, you know, some of us, it's not that I don't have questions, it's that I got to ask them in a different forum prior to tonight, so.
It's okay to not have
So thank you
questions.
for everything you said, but.
So I'll just come out and say that I'm generally very supportive of this. I think this committee as a whole has already come to vote goals for sustainability for the schools and for our work moving forward. And I think that our efforts around Lynch demonstrate that. So I don't think anything in this is particularly concerning to me because I think it already meets the same goals that we've kind of already set for ourselves, as you indicated, Mr. Eno and Mr. Pruitt, about the new Lynch Elementary School. So I guess I would just ask, are there any limitations to this that you see? Is there anything that it's going to make it more challenging for us to build buildings in town? Yeah.
I appreciate that.
You could give him another mic if you want. It's one right there.
I mean, I don't see this as any different than we're doing, but are any of the communities that have adopted it, have they run into any issues or roadblocks that we should be aware of?
None that I know of. As I mentioned, the code applies to all new buildings, whether it's a school or an apartment building or a home. And there's a lot more to talk about if you sort of try to talk about all building types.
Right.
So we decided to try to limit our presentation today to just school buildings. And, it's an important code. The state is trying to incentivize communities to adopt it because it will do something. It would change the way that we've traditionally built buildings in the past by, either having them be all electric, which is the state's goal, and they're continuing to create additional funding streams for that, including the extra 3% MSBA reimbursement that I mentioned. But the limitation is if we were to build another building, another school, for example, and for some reason wanted to have fossil fuel use in it for any purpose, you can do that, but you would have to have a redundant set of wiring to make future electrification easy for whatever fossil fuel use you had in the building. And you'd have to put some rooftop solar. I see that as increasingly a no-brainer just because solar is getting cheaper and cheaper. The benefit that the incentives keep getting stronger and stronger, and it's essentially a money printing press on your roof. I don't, especially when you're talking about a new building and you can design the roof however you want. It really, so that's what I'd say. It imposes some requirements if you want to use some fossil fuels, and that would be a change from what's currently the case. In my opinion, it's not a difficulty, especially for a town like ours that's really a leader on sustainability.
And the incentives seem to outweigh the costs.
What's that?
The incentives seem to outweigh any of the costs.
Yeah, the incentives are increasingly oriented towards, making it not just a lower operating cost scenario, but even a lower first cost to go all electric and include solar.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I would chime in and say that I'm generally also supportive of this. I appreciate the urgency that has been brought to this from the students. Certainly, there's a lot more people in the world that recognize that addressing climate is the right thing to do, which doesn't always mean that it makes sense. But in this case, it sounds like it's also fiscally the right thing to do for the community, and both in terms of potential revenue to the town, as well as you said, future-proofing some of these homes for the transition, so they don't end up with stranded assets and whatnot in their homes. So I'm curious if there are, I appreciate the presentation and the slides. There's a lot of really great information in here. I guess in hindsight, it's not surprising that 72% of the revenue came to the schools over this period of time. When I did the math, it's about $86,000 a year. So it's on average, $1.2 million. It's not nothing. And I appreciate that the likelihood of continuing to get that and then getting another 1 to 2 times that on top of that is quite significant. I wonder if, looking back at green communities, if that's what it's called, 1.0, did you see, it strikes me that I forgot what you said, 40 or 50 communities are in this one now, and almost 300 are in that one. Is there an advantage when the numbers are smaller? Do you get a more disproportionate share of the pie in the early years? Like do early adopters benefit by jumping in early? I don't know if you saw anything in the last round or.
Yeah, actually, that's a really interesting question. Although the past is, no automatic guide to the future, that was the case with the green communities, the existing program, 1.0. In the beginning, actually, we had a few years where we were eligible for up to $250,000 grants. And then as more and more communities joined the program, they eventually had to start spreading those funds out. And once we hit $1 million, any community who hit $1 million in cumulative grants was then brought down to a maximum of 100,000. But for those communities in the beginning, when the number of communities sharing from the same pie was smaller, it was 2.5 times per year. So there's no guarantee that would be the case with the Climate Leader program, but I think there's a good chance that it would be the case.
Yeah, I certainly have a lot to say that I won't say because this is an area that I'm very passionate about. One of the things I think about, particularly as our younger generation cares about this, that I'm seeing in the world more and more people every day, more and more companies every day are making net zero commitments and moving forward. But just because maybe some of us around the table believe this is a good thing, we built the Lynch building as a all electric net zero building, doesn't mean that future committees will also agree. I can't imagine, as I imagine you can't, that the Morocco building would be anything but all electric, or whatever happens to the Mystic building. But we have several new buildings on the horizon, and so I think if there's consensus that it makes sense to support a community policy, understanding that the community is bigger than the school department, but we do have 9 or 10, if you count carriage house buildings in this town, so it's a significant footprint, and I would love to see us continue our leadership in this area. So I'll hand it over to other committee members.
Mr. Nixon, you had said that you had some questions earlier. I'm wondering if they have been answered, or if you still have them.
I have lots of thoughts, and I have little hair left. I had more hair the last time the stretch code came up in 2010, and we talked about it.
And keeping our focus on school
What's
buildings.
that?
And keeping our focus on the new construction energy code as it relates to the
That's
school
what we're
buildings.
talking about, right?
Yep,
So
as it relates to school.
In 2010, the school committee did not take a position on it. The MSBA got ahead of it even before town meeting did. It all actually happened pretty quickly. And I think one of you maybe mentioned even the MSBA in your remarks. So I'm heartened that they followed this very closely. For the record, Mr. Pruitt did reach out to me to talk about this in July. I was actually in recovery after surgery, and so you're on my list, and I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to you yet. But we should have a sidebar conversation, because I'm glad you reached out to me. So I I have a lot of thoughts that I want to throw out there. The first is, we said, when I say we, with the school committee, I mean, EFPBC did this, but very much with the support of the school committee and administration. We said that the new Lynch Elementary School would be an all-electric building with a floor EUI of 25. And then a few weeks later, the select board voted and told us to make it an all-electric building with a floor of 25. So we were leading by example. And to Mr. Hopcroft's point, I really cannot imagine a new Morocco would be anything but all electric. And I think that what we're accomplishing today and what we would like to accomplish in the future is really a reflection of how our awareness and our values have changed over time, as well as technology that makes a lot of our goals possible. I also, though, feel like, and we've talked about this before in the context of other conversations, without specifically talking about this issue, but just more broadly, I always feel it is in our interest to set strategy, and if there are dollars to be had because of it, that's great. I am made somewhat uncomfortable if we react to the potential for grants or the promise for grants. I always feel uncomfortable if grants are what's driving us to make change. I'd rather be making change because it's the right thing to do. And if we are towards the front of the line and then there are resources that come our way, I think that's terrific. What I struggle with is if I put my design and construction hat on, the notion of pre-wiring for future electrification is something I got to tell you, actually I don't understand, because if you're building and you choose for fossil fuels, you don't know what that future electrification looks like. You're talking about equipment that you're not purchasing yet. It's not manufactured yet. So what is the power requirement? What's the motor load? Maybe the simplest analogy would be if somebody's putting forced hot air gas in their basement, and they might change to a ductless split, a heat pump. You typically would see the outdoor air handlers on the side of a house, but where do those go? So how do you pre-wire for something that you haven't bought yet and you don't have any information on? I struggle with this. I get the intent of it, but I struggle with it, practically speaking. And then I guess the other thing I would just say is, I actually, maybe this is my libertarian streak sort of showing. I really wish, I hope, that town meeting might consider kind of an alternative, which is rather than this option to, okay, go with fossil fuels, but then pre-wire, and I'm not really sure what that means. What if instead we adopted that more stringent code? What if we actually rewarded property owners and builders? What if we actually threw out an incentive, a la Obama's cash for clunkers? What if the town actually charged half price for a building permit if you actually went with an all-electric building? That would be a great way for the town to put its money where its mouth is. I think what I would close with is building codes are sort of promulgated by national and international agencies, and it's always based on data. What are we learning about buildings today? What are we learning about technology today? And codes are expressly written to protect the life, safety, and welfare of occupants. It's meant to protect us. If you take the position, as I do, we're in the midst of a global climate crisis, I have a lot of confidence in those national and global code agencies that work together, who are really expert in this. And because codes do change with time, any code that is put before Winchester on a state level, I'm sure is going to reflect those interests. So I think if a municipality, recognizing that we are not sort of those code experts, if there is an optional code that we think takes us to another level, helps us meet the guidelines Rick you spoke to in the climate action plan, I would like to think there's a way that we can actually incentivize that financially. And I think we could do it, actually, as a town. And I wonder if we gave residents and contractors the option, I'll bet we would be pleasantly surprised by the adoption. So it's kind of where my head is. I would have shared all that with you if I hadn't been in the recovery bay, Ken. But we got some time before a town meeting to, continue to think it through. I I am generally supportive of this. What I just hesitate about is, because I'm sitting here at a table with my school committee hat on, is this appropriate for the school committee to weigh in on? Is it more appropriate for the EFPBC to weigh in on? But whatever one weighs in on, is this really the right sort of option? Or could the town maybe take a different position? With an incentive, is what I'm saying. My question, if I may, Madam Chair, to either to Ken or Rick, I am curious to know, who is the proponent of this? Is it the Climate Action Committee? And what other bodies have you spoken to, and do you have support from, if any, yet?
It will be the Climate Action Committee that will bring this forward. Interestingly, it became very much a mechanism to get to our climate action plan goals, but as you've heard through this conversation, it's adopted quite a strong economic argument underlying it as well. Ken has been meeting with a number of people. Maybe give a quick rundown of who we've got input from and how that's going, because we've had many, many conversations.
Yeah, and I know the select board is, will be meeting at, at some point. I'm not sure the exact timeline to decide whether to vote to co-sponsor versus just vote to support, but that's coming. Let's see, we met with the Energy Management Committee, which did take a vote, and the vote, there was some debate about what the motion should actually be at the Energy Management Committee. They essentially voted to say, we deal with buildings that have already been built to enhance their energy efficiency. And so we don't really think this is an Energy Management Committee, measure. And so instead, their vote was essentially to say, we don't have a position on the code per se, but we want Winchester to become a climate leader and get the additional money. And so that's literally
their job.
That's literally the statement that's going to be, read by the chair at town meeting. We did a presentation to the planning board. It's still fairly early, and we still have stakeholder outreach happening right up to town meeting. But the planning board heard it, asked questions. They didn't take a vote on that. There have been presentations to the Rotary Club, to the Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, they're not committees that are taking votes on anything, but just as part of the outreach. And we've, inquired with capital planning, with EFPBC, and the Finance Committee about whether they would like a presentation. In each case, the answer has been, we're going to check. Those with the chairs. The chairs said, we'll check internally and get back to you. I think FinCom at a minimum will likely want a presentation in a Q&A session like this. I don't know about capital planning or EFPBC at this time, and that could be it for committees, unless, Josh, can you think of any others that we presented to?
In the future, we're planning a builders meeting to explain the code to local builders and developers so that they're aware and have any questions we can answer.
Right, we do have, that's right. There's a presentation next week for affordable housing advocates, because, obviously, affordable housing is built in buildings, and so they want to understand what this code would be as well. And I think that's it for now. But if there are others you recommend that we reach out to, definitely open to that as well.
Can
I
I,
was just going to say that I think, well, just from my perspective, I know that I'd been to community conversations, so I appreciated what Vita and Catherine had to say this evening. I remember going to some of the community conversations within Winchester several years ago and speaking with some of the students and student leaders at that time, and climate change came up absolutely, and was a very, students spoke very passionately about it at that time, and that's always stuck in my head. And also, I think it's a big topic on college campuses, or some of the topics. in some of the classes that I've been hearing about. And when I was traveling through Japan over the summer, it was interesting to see the billboards and signs plastered and painted onto the buildings, just talking about sustainability, solar, and development. So I personally appreciate that the Winchester schools have been a leader with regard to the Lynch project and the solar panels and the direct ownership of the solar panels and a net zero building. And I personally hope that we would continue to be a leader in this area. So I've heard a little bit from members saying, well, could we reach consensus on supporting this? And I don't know if that is something, or
Can I jump in on, just
Yes.
follow up on something Mr. Nixon said before
Go
we
right
get
ahead.
too far away? I see you
Please.
have something to say. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they also have a meeting to go to at 7. So I feel like we have
I'm going to be
volunteers. so we have
super quick.
meetings.
I just wanted to respond. Yeah.
It's here, but this is more important, so take your time.
Like I said, I may be super quick. Mr. Nixon posed the question whether it's appropriate for school committee to vote to support this. And I would say, just hearing from the students and knowing that the students need our support to support their efforts, it's absolutely, in my opinion, appropriate for school committee to vote to support this. I think there's a difference between warrant articles, between supporting and co-sponsoring at town meeting, and perhaps it's appropriate for EFPBC to consider co-sponsoring this article, since school buildings are a leader in this, and we already have this goal as a school committee to support sustainability. I would certainly hope that if we support it, EFPBC would also vote to either co-sponsor or support it, being that our mission should be aligned. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, so I had a couple, your comments were thought-provoking for me, and so I was thinking about it. The first was on the kind of the strategy, chasing the grants or vice versa, sort of the dog wagging the tail argument. And I think we do have a strategy in terms of, the state has a plan, the town has a plan. I think we're committed as the school department. And so my sense is that anything we can do that advances those plans is within the kind of right thing to do category. And anyway, so that's on that point. I think that when it comes to future use on homes, you're right. Like we're pre-wiring homes right now with gas pipes instead of 220-volt wires for induction stoves and things like that. But I do think that there are a lot of products on the market and coming on the market in the induction range and whatnot that we can reasonably foresee that they may comply with the current, an electrician could figure out what you need to wire it with for at least the foreseeable future. Yes, new technologies will come down the road that may require much greater electric or other sources of fuel, but I think that can be overcome, and that's a little bit outside our scope anyway, because that seems like more of a residential thing, but maybe it's also a building thing. And the other thing that really was interesting was this, you raised the libertarian streak, and I was like, because I keep checking myself, because I'm in a...
Because you think that's interesting, or you thought Nixon, really?
Maybe both. But I was like, because it comes down to who should be making the decision, right? And I feel like, there's federal leadership right now, there's state leadership right now, there's town leadership right now. And I do think, I agree with Ms. Bergstrom, that I do think it's appropriate for the school committee to weigh in with an opinion. And actually, I think it was really well stated to say, co-sponsoring it, that's a little bit higher hurdle and something that we should talk about. If that were, this is all just new buildings, but all buildings, and we're only a piece of that. So it seems like supporting makes more sense to me. But I think that's reasonable, and I do like the idea of the town offering incentives as well. However, when I think about how our town works in the fiscal situation, this is a net gain of money into town meeting, whereas the other would be, a reduction if we're giving breaks on permits and things like that. So I think it's a harder burden to sell in town meeting, as much as that. But I would like if there were opportunities, and maybe it's something that the Climate Action Advisory Committee could think about, if there's opportunities the town can do to further incentivize decision-making on the individual level, which I know we have with wind power and some other things, but you know, we should all be taking personal responsibility and doing the things that we can within our lives to advance in this area. But given that sort of hierarchy of federal, state, town, you were part of the town, I think, to me, it feels like a no-brainer. It's more money, mostly disproportionately into the schools. Actually, that's not quite true, but a lot of money into the schools, because I guess you said 83% of the square footage is schools, so we really should be getting a little bit more. But anyway, it's a lot, and so anyway, the libertarian thing was interesting.
Two quick follow-ups,
Yes.
if I may. So first of all, if I was misunderstood, casting no aspersions against the climate action plan. I think Ken knows this. We actually cited it in the RFP for the Lynch Elementary School, and actually set some project goals and explain why it's important because of the town's climate action plan. And both our OPM and our architects and engineers heard that loud and clear. I guess my last weedy observation, and this is, my head does, I do go into the weeds sometimes on stuff like this when we get technical. Like Monday night, there was a motion at the select board to pre-order a transformer for the Mystic, and I raised my hand and said, which of the 3 electrical scenarios you want to order a transformer for? Because it matters, and, there's costs associated. If I feel like opportunities like this, the words matter. And so what I always go to is it clear? Is it, I say, enforceable? Is it really clearly actionable? How confident are we that we're going to get the results that we're looking for? It's not clear to me right now that an aspiring contractor might pull a permit, put in forced hot air gas, and then put in 30 feet of 14-gauge Romex from the panel to some corner of the house and say, I'm done, I'm wired for electric. That will do nothing. That will do nothing for future electrification. And I don't know how our town building department would address that issue. So what does it mean, to my earlier point, well, what's electrified and what are those loads? If you don't know, I'm actually quite serious about this. I think a contractor could just put in a run of 12 or 14 gauge cable and say, I did it. And I'm not sure the town's in a position to say, no, you didn't. That's just, you're just doing that to say you did. So that's kind of just, it's what I struggle with a little bit, because if that were to happen, then we can say we've adopted it and that we're enforcing this, but I'm not really sure we're
But that's getting more towards the town and
on the
town
pre-wiring
meetings.
side is what I'm saying. I'm not really sure we would be getting what we expected.
But I don't think school committee weighs in on that specific.
But
We're
that
just-
is fundamental to what the proposal is, which we're, talking about.
And I guess,
in
Mr.
the
Nixon,
way.
that's why I asked if any of the towns that have already adopted it were finding any roadblocks or issues with it, because that seems like it's something that may have come up already in other towns that have pre-adopted this ahead of Winchester. And that's part of what I was getting at with Mr. Pruitt is if.
Is it okay if
Go ahead.
is it okay if I just, I think the question I had was exactly what Michelle just said, which is, there are 45 communities that have early adopted this. I'm assuming we have some guidance from their experience that could answer some of the questions that Mr. Nixon is raising, right? Is that was a question observation more than anything?
I can comment on that if you like.
If you'd like to do that
Yeah, just
briefly.
to-
Don't want to, obviously mindful of the fact it's 7:07, I don't want to.
No, that's quite all right. I think Mr. Nixon raises a very interesting question, and it has to do with the fact that building codes are really about the future. When you adopt or change a building code, it doesn't change anything that's been built previously. And what the state is trying to do with this code is look into the future and make the right choices about where we're headed. If we could have gone back, 10 years, I think that the regular stretch code would have included pre-wiring for EV charging stations. It would have been a smart thing to do, and instead, my case is typical. It was $500 for the little charger that I put on the wall of my house, and $1,200 for the electrician to bring the wire from the panel to that location. I could have avoided that entire cost if it had just been done when the house was built. So it, the code, first of all, the way the code is, the way this, the state set this up, you either adopt the code fully or not. And the warrant article is pretty short. We can share that. It's actually already drafted because it just says, see if the town will adopt, legal reference, and that's essentially it. So under the current code, under that code, you essentially just have to, if you do pre-wire, it has to be to, in the future, put in electrical appliances that are similar in draw to today's heat pumps, for example, or induction cooking. And you are correct. It's possible that we could get to some point in the future, and there's, some new system that needs more juice than today's systems, at which time, there could be an issue, and you might still have to do some additional wiring. I think, from what I've seen, and I'm not a building professional, if a lot of buildings are already wired a certain way, built a certain way, new manufacturers of new equipment for buildings and appliances tend to try to produce equipment that will work with the existing sort of, infrastructure that's in place, because they know that people can buy it and put it right in. They don't have to pre-wire. But nevertheless, your point is a good one. We can't predict the future, and that's what building codes do. And so the state has, the Department of Energy Resources was tasked by the legislature to try to predict the future, and they did that through this code. They think they have it right. There's actually an informational session with one of the authors of the code this Tuesday morning, the session at 10 o'clock at the library for builders and developers. One of the code authors will be there.
Tuesday, you said?
Tuesday in the large meeting room at the library. And I encourage you to come, because if anyone can answer that question and prognosticate, it would be that speaker.
Can I also just weigh in? It strikes me that you'll always have people cheating the system, and it might be cheaper for the developer to just say it's an all-electric house and, get sign off on the place and then run the gas line and put in the appliances. But with the code in place, many people, because maybe they're risk averse and they may not want to get caught, or they might just have a good contractor who follows the rules, many will do the right thing. And this is in the directly reducing carbon emissions from our buildings. But even if everyone cheats, but we're still, we don't catch it because our building inspectors don't have the ability to do that or something, which I'm skeptical of that point, but it still opens up all these grants. And so we have money flowing into the town for other green projects. So we are at the place we are today with the current code, and we're getting more money to put in more improvements. So it's a net gain for the town financially and climate-wise, even if it doesn't work, even if our inspections aren't good, et cetera. So it's just my belief.
Can I just pick up on, so I wanted to sort of give my 2 comments, but these are not questions. Thank you so much to all of our speakers, including our students who came today. I agree with Ms. Bergstrom that student voices and student leadership, the leadership of younger folks, is actually really quite strong around this issue. I think it's something that consistently comes up as a place we should admire our younger people for leading us forward on, because it's actually, I think it's forced us all in a way that sometimes can be inconvenient to reckon with some of the consequences of decisions that have been made in the past. I shared this with Ken previous to this at our policy subcommittee meeting. We are renovating our house. As part of that project, we thought that we were only going to be dealing with the heating and air conditioning systems in the new part of the house. It turned out actually it was both more future-proofed and also more financially advantageous for us to just start fresh. And so we have electric heat pumps in our house moving forward, our 1927 100-year-old almost house now. It's also a lot more well-insulated than it was before. And I think we're going to reap a lot of the benefits of that, both in terms of our own comfort as well as the cost of of keeping our house comfortable as the climate continues to change. And the last thing I'll say is, sort of to extend on what Ms. Bergstrom was saying earlier, I think, I can imagine that town meeting will want, certainly as a major builder in town, shall we say, an organ in town that is responsible for buildings that are certainly on the horizon. I can imagine that town meeting would almost want us to weigh in on this issue, because it does implicate, I think, having this new second tier stretch code obviously has implications for the projects that we're going to be choosing to support or not support moving forward. And so, I'm putting my sort of town meeting member hat on right now. If I were a town meeting member who didn't happen to sit on school committee, I can imagine sitting there and thinking, well, what, gosh, there's potentially a new Morocco on the horizon, and goodness knows how many other renovations we may have to do in the future. What does school committee feel about this? And I think given the leadership of young people, given the sort of realities that we're facing, which we've all acknowledged, I think it would be really important for us to lead, right? To make clear what our priorities are and where we stand on that. And so for me, it goes way beyond the personal. It goes to, sort of, are we able to, given the fact that we are going to have both a logistical and a budget implication to this, should, the town agree to it, that I think it would be helpful for us to take a clear stand, obviously limited to the scope of the school committee. I mean, I think sort of circumscribing that as like, as the leaders of the Winchester Public Schools, do we think it's something that would affect us moving forward, and do we think it would have a positive impact? So that's how I'm thinking about it in terms of the coming to consensus piece. But I thank you all for your time, every one of you who's come to share, and obviously, Ken, you've spent a little more time with our policy subcommittee. Thank you for that as well.
Sure.
We really appreciate your leadership on this.
Thank you.
Would you like to give a plug for Climate Solutions Week while you're here?
Yeah, Climate Solutions Week is a week from, not next week, but the week after. Number of activities happening, including walk and roll to school, which Dr. Hackett and his office have been very kind about helping us. We will be promoting, which is encouraging all students at all schools to take their bike or walk to school during that week where possible. And then we have a series of other events. We have the tour of the transfer station, which was absolutely mobbed last time. Apparently people are completely fascinated with the transfer station. There were like 50 people, and we couldn't get them to leave. They kept asking questions. There's an public information session on this code, sort of for everybody, if you want to dig deeper into how the code applies to all buildings. That there's a Tuesday night session on that, but it's up on the Sustainability Department website under Climate Solutions Week, and you can see the whole lineup. Thank you, Michelle.
Ken, did you say Tuesday night or Tuesday morning?
Evening, yep.
Tuesday evening's the public
I
information
thought he said
session.
morning.
Next Tuesday morning is the.
So, yeah, this coming Tuesday, so
This
there's a lot
coming
of,
Tuesday.
there's 3 different information sessions coming. One is this coming Tuesday morning, specifically oriented for builders and developers.
Okay.
Then Wednesday night, there's a session just for affordable housing advocates. And then the following Tuesday, the 24th, I believe, at 7 p.m., there's a public information session for everybody, covering everything, with a different speaker from the Department of Energy Resources.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yes.
I was wondering if you could just make one comment related to a point that Mr. Nixon made. I'm Josh Bears.
So Josh, I'm sorry to stop you, but no one will be able to hear you on WinCam unless you're at a microphone, so.
And are you with?
Yeah, thanks for,
It's up to the chair whether she wants to.
And I'm sorry, is everybody in one group? So,
Are you part of the Climate Action Committee?
I'm a member of the Climate Action
okay,
Advisory
yes,
Committee.
all right.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
making
not-
sure.
You're not
I got
just
that
off the
impression
street.
originally.
Random person that came out of the good work here.
We vouch for him.
Josh Bears. Yeah, and just to respond to Mr. Nixon's comment about incentivizing folks for this, and because I think actually the incentive is built in, and it's more of a, if you don't use carbon, you don't pay for the pre-wiring. And pre-wiring in the grand scheme of things on a house or a school that's going to house multi-millions is in the thousands. It's less than 1%. but think of it as a carbon tax. A lot of people have talked about carbon tax and the impracticability of actually applying it, but this is a way that it's a carbon tax. If you burn carbon in your school to have gas stoves for, let's say you want to cook on gas, it's a reasonable thing to ask. You just have to offset that carbon with generating power that's equivalent to it over the course of the year through solar panels, and you don't have to pre-wire if you don't put that in. So I think that's the incentive.
Thank you. And so we have had mention of of asking for consensus from the committee on whether we support the new construction energy code work of the Climate Action Advisory Committee as you make your rounds. And I guess, but I leave that to the committee.
How would you like us to do that, Madam Chair?
She left it
Would
to the
you
committee.
Well,
Would you like to just say it?
I could propose
Rather than
that
vote.
when the Warren article's available, if they would bring that back to us, and then we can take a vote on that. I think I'm happy to say that I'm generally supportive of this as it stands, and I think Mr. Matthews and I have articulated, I think it supports our kids, our students, our families, and our own policy we've already set, so. I don't know if you want to weigh in, Mr. Matthews.
No, I'm also generally supportive. I mean, I think you made an important point about the fact that this is sort of something that has been established already and has been rolled out in other communities, and it's more a question of the simplicity behind the actual warrant article is a result of the fact that we're basically just adopting something that's been used in other places and has been thought about by many folks. Whether we want to put other incentives in place is certainly, I think, the prerogative of town meeting, but for this particular issue, I think I can say I'm wholly supportive. So thank you.
I'd say I'm supportive as well, and I agree with Ms. Bergstrom that, getting the language, we can have a vote more formally of support with the language, but I certainly like the direction and appreciate all the work you guys have done, and the student community as well.
And I am also generally supportive. And I would also say, once you have the article prepared, or the motion prepared, then that would be great to bring back to us. So if we wanted to formalize that or anything to codify that, then we could do so. Okay,
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
thank you. We
And
really appreciate it.
yeah, we as a committee, and I'm sure with Ken, we have pledged to, cross all the Ts, dot all the Is, and make sure we get things back to you promptly. Chris, you offered a very specific list of things to talk about. We've reached out to you. Now you're back. We'll get some time with you. We'll work through those. And let's all make this work, because I think you folks are leaders, and I think it'd be fantastic if we could say this is the direction the town's going in. Here's a great example of where it's happening in action.
Great,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Thank you
all
all
your
so
time, and
much.
thanks to the students.
Sorry
Thank
we
you so
made
much
you
to the
20 minutes
students.
late tonight.
You can
We
kick off
really
your
appreciate
meeting.
everyone's time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. Yes, it's great to hear from the committee, and it's especially great to hear from our students. I think we all enjoy
Thank
that,
you.
so thank you so much. All righty, moving right along. We had other town meeting, I feel faint. That was just one of the town meeting articles. I was all ready to move on, but
We have, Madam Chair, we have 8 minutes for the remaining ones, so. Looking at our agenda.
yes. Woo.
Times are approximate.
That's right.
We'll pick up the pace on the next one.
Yes. So Mr. Nixon had prepared a memo, but it is a late-breaking memo, just updating. So we have that in our packet, which
And is
I
there,
would say that if you could summarize and then,
Okay. So I know some couple of members have reached out to me over the past couple of weeks just asking what's going on with capital, and my answer was we don't know yet. Capital took actually a week off last week because there had been some ongoing discussion with management and the board about the possibility of making a significant investment in free cash to put towards capital projects, as well as to support some bonding against the stabilization funds. That really needed to be worked out and understood first. So Capital's chair, Roger McPeak, who's been kind of going back and forth with management and Ms. Pryor and the board, did appear before the board Monday night. And really, I'm just very pleased to share in the memo, sort of summarizes this, that the select board did in fact vote to authorize an amount of free cash to make 3 important capital projects a reality this cycle, without which we would simply did not have the resources and the stabilization funds, particularly at Town Hall and the library. So those are not school buildings, but those are high priorities. So if the free cash wasn't there, there might have been a school project that would not have made the list. So what I will review for you all very quickly, as you know from each fall town meeting, Capital in its report kind of brings forward, I call it the omnibus article. So it's a list of capital items funded from the Capital Building Stabilization Fund. It's under one article with multiple quick motions. What you see on your screen here and in the memo, there are 3 school projects on this list of 13. So school district access controls and security cameras that Mr. Marion presented are included, as well as a supplemental funding request. It's $80,000 that came from DPW to address shortfall in funding at the Vincent Owen School. Importantly, though, and this came up actually at last night's Capital Planning Committee meeting, so we just wanted to be sure administration and the chair was okay with this. Monday night, there was the high school security cameras was an item. McCall security cameras was an item. You'll remember one of those is a first step, another is kind of phase 2. The proposal at Capital last night was to actually condense them into one, which is a great idea, because what this allows us to do then is if we go $10,000 over on McCall, but we're 10 under at Winchester, it makes the funds more fungible. So we do appreciate that. Dr. Hackett, Mr. Mara, and Ms. Bolanese were all okay with that. So that was sort of an executive decision, and it has been done. So that's how it will appear for town meeting. Now, in addition, we have a standalone article. So we also voted last night to support this standalone for the fall, with seeking funding for a lot of work at McCall, what we call phase 1 of the roof replacement. That's only because there is other work that will need to be done eventually, but this is actually quite a lot of work. This includes the sloped shingled roof on the 1932 building that faces Main Street, and some adjacent flat roofs as well, also some adjacent masonry where the roof kind of ties into the wall. So it is quite a lot of work. Now, as you know, this does not include things like the E-wing, the E-wing addition, because those are newer roofs. But we do have some roofs that are, 15 years old or older that will need some attention. So don't be surprised if those come up in the next capital cycle or 2. But this is a substantial amount of work, and you can see it's over $2.5 million. And you will recall from last year, there were also recommendations for mostly repair of the Ambrose roof, very limited replacement. The only real replacement is at the top of the elevator overrun. It's like 80 square feet of roof. And that's about $430,000. So all in, it's $2.96 million. However, once again, we didn't have that kind of funding in the Building Stabilization Fund, but the Select Board worked out an agreement with Capital that we would be able to actually bond just over $1 million against the Stabilization Fund for that work. Just as a footnote, there's some major debt that's going to roll off the books in the next year and a half, and that actually includes the Ambrose School. So that'll be good. So we're starting to make some commitments around bonding only because we know what's rolling off the tax log. The other issue, and this is actually how the board, I think, teed this up Monday night, they just got the DOR certification for free cash on August 30th. We have just over $24.1 million in free cash in the general fund. that is welcome news, of course, and it exceeds our 6 to 10% sort of free cash policy from the board. So that, and I think folks knew it was going to be a big number. I'm not sure we knew it was going to be 24. Some thought maybe 21, 22, but it's great. And this is really why the board was willing to commit approximately $2 million in free cash to go towards some projects. There are other demands on free cash, of course, which is why they probably didn't want to go that much farther. So a couple of other things. So additional projects. As you all know, we got favorable results, on the second surface applied corrosion inhibitor for the concrete issues we have here at the high school. Our engineer came and presented to the EFPBC this week on Monday, and we're really encouraged by this. We feel like it's a good product. We've got a good plan to address the spalling and the corrosion that's happening in some areas down below in the crawl space, but the bigger issue would be to simply apply this in mass to all the concrete below. So think of it like belts and suspenders. The product penetrates far deeper than it needs to, and it essentially stops that carbonation front from getting to the reinforcing steel. So we see this as a really important investment to basically be sure our $129 million investment in this building goes another 30 or 40 years. And in addition to that work, again, we did a little field trip a few months ago over to the guidance department. You know, we have in a few limited areas at the building, we have some topside corrosion for completely different reasons. It has nothing to do with carbonation. It's actually chloride contamination, which is salts. It's small. It's less than 0.6 of the floor area in the building, so that's good, but it's bad in some areas. So that's going to mean some selective demolition. Floors come up, walls may come down, doors and door frames come out. We fix that, float new concrete, finishes go back in. This, of course, is what a summer project sounds like. So this would not be anything that would happen during the school year. The surface applied corrosion inhibitor may well happen may even this school year, possibly. So if this gets funded at fall town meeting, we may be cutting this loose as a phase 1 and a phase 2. So we're hopeful for that. But there's more design work that needs to be done for all that topside work. And so our hope then would be that would go out to bid in the spring, and there would be a little summer construction project here at Winchester High School. Our working number for all of this is $1.2 million, but we have engaged SGH to get back out here and take a few more kind of field measurements and be really sure about the scope of that work. I think that we're going to be close to the 1.2. You know, it may go down, it may go up, but it was always just meant to be a placeholder. Just one way or another, we were going to need some money to make this happen. And fortunately, because we have the support for this, now we're going to sharpen our pencils. So Capital Planning Committee did vote to support this. It will be funded by the Building Stabilization Fund. Given the visibility that this has and the amount of money involved, it was felt that this warranted kind of a standalone article. So it is co-sponsored with the EFPBC. This is the latest version of the language that you see here after management scrubbed it yesterday. So we're looking forward to that. Well, I don't know if I'm looking forward to the presentation, but we're looking forward to support from a town meeting in the fall. And then our other high school project, of course, is the gymnasium. And we've kind of talked about this for a while in different settings and circles. So forgive me, I'm not sure how much detail we've covered here, Dr. Hackett with the school committee. So just to recap, this project was funded at Springtown meeting. This is our reflooring and reconfiguration project. We funded this at $2.6 million at town meeting. So that was ARPA, it was overlay, it was free cash, so 3 different buckets. That 2.6 did include $100,000 for our architects to actually get to a bid set and then to provide construction administration. In other words, that's not really for construction. So if you back that out, we net funded it at $2.5 million. We had a low bidder. They were below budget, and then they retracted their bid. And our second low bidder came in at 2.7. So we are over budget. But for a project like this, you definitely want to have contingencies. So EFPBC, particularly our chair, Jay Nardone, has really spent a lot of time working with engineering and planning and management about this, thinking about what is the right number to ask for to address some of the schedule and contingency concerns, equipment concerns from contractors. And it's not a small number. What I will just share with you, the one bit of feedback I think was very interesting. We got a lot of interest in the project, huge turnout. Our second low bidder has indicated they're very excited about the project. And they have agreed to hold their bid through the end of November. They were under no obligation to do that. Why that's good is it means now that you know the number you need to get to, what we have to now do is find that funding, and we have a contractor, and we can get going. I think what tripped us up, to be very candid about this, it really wasn't the work in the floor itself, but as you know, there's a lot of equipment in this project, particularly the bleachers and scoreboards and so forth. So the manufacturing of this equipment, of course, is outside the control of contractors, right? So if the bleachers are being made in Columbus, Ohio, they have to get made and they show up on a truck. Contractor, all they can do is put in an order. We did call for some liquidated damages if the project wasn't ready on time. And indications are that, contractors may have looked at that and said, well, I want to do the job, I can manage the demo and the new floor. I don't know how confident I am the bleachers are going to show up on time. I might get dinged with liquidated damages. Therefore, I'm going to actually pad my bid with some liquidated damages. So our best intentions, actually, we may have shot ourselves in the foot in that respect. So that may have contributed to some of this. So at any rate, but while we are still working on what contingency we feel is appropriate, we're still looking at, $530,000 to $670,000 delta. A number of private groups have increasingly expressed interest either in making donations or even starting a fundraising exercise for this project, which would be terrific. I'm certainly supportive of it, and so it sort of remains to be seen how that might coalesce, but I think they've reached out to some district staff and administrators as well.
Can I ask a quick question on this? You mentioned,
Yeah, sure.
through the chair.
Yes, please.
Just, you'd mentioned ARPA funding. Does this need to be under contract by December?
It does, yes. And therefore, so if we get a favorable result at Fall Town Meeting, that won't be an issue, because obviously we have the bid, we have all the contractors' information, they've been fully vetted and so forth. So it's all, if you will, teed up.
Is there a backup if we don't? Do we just do a little bit less equipment for now, or, I mean, I hate to lose the ARPA money?
I'm not sure. It's a good question.
Or maybe it's a thing to just raise at town meeting that it puts it at risk.
Let me answer it this way. So when we realized, when the low bidder pulled out and the second bidder was too high, we really had two options. One was you ask the next lowest bidder to hold their number, and now we got to figure out, well, how do we get the additional funding? But there's certainty in that because you have a number, right? So then you have a contract. The other alternative was to simply rebid the job and to change the expectation about completion date. But there's risk in that too, because by that point, the interested contractors, they've seen each other's numbers. So you lose some of that advantage. But your question reminds me, we should clarify this too. As you all know, our expectation was we would have handed over the gym in mid-August to the contractor. They would have had it this fall. The goal was to be ready by the winter season. So that is obviously not happening, kind of like Mystic Heat. So if we do get the funding, the goal would then be but we don't want it to be the quote-unquote summer slammer. We'd still like to find a way to maximize the runway to get the work done and possibly turn it over to the contractor in the spring. So they have a good chunk of the spring and the summer to get it done by the fall. The elephant in the room is, where do we do high school graduation if there's a storm outside? So not sure. I'm not going to put Dr. Hackett on the spot, but that is an important question. I mean, we would like to be able to give up the space in the spring to the contractor if we could.
They make big tents. They
Yeah.
make big tents.
Big tent.
Yeah, thank you.
Nailed down
Mr.
really
Nixon, is
well.
there any chance it could come in under the contractor's bid if those parts don't cost as much as they think they did, or they know they've got it in on time?
Yes, and it's a great question. And an element that contributes to this issue is that, as you all may remember, we are purchasing 2 new backboards, and we would be relocating the 10 that are there. The 10 backboards we have are in great shape. Mark Aria tells us we have no issues with them, they're perfectly serviceable, but they would need to be relocated. Our architect had I think, a really good suggestion, which was to ask the bidders for unit prices for replacement backboards. and they provided them. The reason that's important, and we often do this around things like contaminated soils that need to be trucked off a site. You start excavating and you find you have contaminated soils. Now you have to take them off site. When you're in the midst of a job, and let's say you're moving a backboard and it falls apart, it breaks, or you find in taking it apart, you now can't put it back together. You don't want to be in a situation as an owner where the contractor says, well, now you got to have a new one, and it's going to cost you $50,000 each, because you kind of lost your negotiation, right? So what we do sometimes is we ask contractors to provide unit prices up front, so they did. And that's helpful, because now you know in advance that if you have a problem, now you know what they're going to cost. So the unit prices for the replacement backboards from the next lowest bidder, $20,000 each. There's 10 of them. A fair question was asked by a member of the select board, so what's your plan if 10 of them fall apart? Well, that's $200,000. We would only incur that expense, mind you, if in trying to relocate them, they fell apart,
break.
or they couldn't be moved. There's no indication today that that will happen, but that is frankly a fair question, because if they fell apart, we could be stuck. That's why I'm glad Ms. Bergstrom asked the question. So it adds to, frankly, what is a big ask. So between the unit pricing for the backboards and what may be a pretty conservative contingency, it may well be that we finish the job and we're not spending anywhere near that kind of money. But I think it's important, since we're going back to the well, we need to be reasonably conservative, I guess I would say it that way, because we can't go back a third time, as you just suggested. The ARPA funds go poof.
Yeah, so is that 200,000 for the backboards included in this 535 to 670 number?
It is, yes.
Plus other contingencies that
Yeah,
may not occur?
Yeah.
Great.
So, more to come on that. If there should be a fundraising exercise that comes together, I hope we're able to, telegraph that maybe at a school committee meeting, but I don't think that's quite come together yet. And as I said earlier, there's at least one private group that's interested in maybe making a contribution as well.
Well, you're putting the idea out there.
But, dollars, contributions are always welcome, but they need to actually show up. They need to be sort of accounted for. Money has to be in the bank, if you will. We have a little bit of time on this because, as you know, the motions aren't due until October 10th-ish, October 11th. And then if there should be a fundraising campaign, it doesn't need to stop then. It can go all the way to the start of town meeting, and any one of us could, make a motion from the floor to reduce the borrowing amount because somebody's raised a lot of money. Town meeting's usually happy to hear that.
Can I ask one other question? The 535, if 200 of it is these backboard replacements that may or may not happen, and 200 is the initial gap, is 135,000 sufficient for, it seems usually the contingencies are like, it feels like a percentage of the whole project, which is, what, 2.6 million or something?
Yeah, so what trips us up here is we think about construction costs versus project costs, but engineering and planning, they've done some really good work looking at the detailed, there's a more detailed breakdown that gives us comfort that, this is the range. And candidly, Meg White is really kind of suggesting we go with a higher amount, and that may be what we do. But we got a little time to talk about. EFPBC just was getting into this Monday night.
Yeah.
Our hope is that, when I say our, EFPBC's hope is that the select board will actually co-sponsor this article. So we literally voted it at probably 7 o'clock at night on a Monday, and then I went up to town hall at like 9 o'clock. So they knew that we were going to be talking about it. There's interest among some members of the board in co-sponsoring. They didn't actually take a vote because it's not the 23rd yet, but hopefully they will. One member kind of said, well, we co-sponsored the initial ask, we should probably co-sponsor this one. And actually, that was Mr. Betancourt, and I really appreciated that. So hopefully that will come together. And then the last item on here is our favorite heating project at Mystic. The Select Board did talk about this as well Monday night. There were some interesting developments there. I think we all knew from our joint meeting that Ms. Rudolph needed some authorization from the Select Board to cut Weston and Sampson loose to finish up bid documents for Mystic Heat. She did a fine job describing the vote that we took, supporting the isolation of the 1923 piping and replacing it with that electric VRF system. but that our vote did not include the 1950 steam piping. She suggested to the board that because of the progress Weston and Sampson has already made, let them just continue to do that, but package that, what I call the north end of the Main Street building, put that as an ad alternate, which seems like a good idea. She also was able to confirm from Weston and Sampson that doing that, sort of either taking it out of the project or breaking it out, really had no impact on the bigger idea, which is isolating the piping. I know that was an open issue from our joint meeting, so that was helpful feedback. So don't seem to have any issues there. And then the last note is the board did ultimately direct the town manager to get started on a transformer request for the project. And you may remember from the Weston and Sampson report, there were some different options there for transformers, including, full electrification of the building down the road, and that's bigger transformer, more money. There's real concern about this being a long lead item. We're actually behind on the transformer for the new Lynch, and we talked about it at the EFPBC Monday night, pushing hard. Hope to see it soon, but they're very hard to get. So I appreciate that what the board voted really was just only what's needed to power the work that we've already discussed, and I think that'll make it actually a little easier to find one. So that's it.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Yes, please go ahead.
Quick. So on the ad alternate, I was curious, that makes the North Main Street 1950s piece of the building the ad alternate. I understand that we can't do the testing on the part that's cold, where the kids are up there until it's cold. But it strikes me that you have the core part that's definitely moving forward. You have this ad alternate over here. Be nice if this other thing was an ad alternate too, and maybe it could be prioritized ahead of this other ad, because otherwise it's the original project where you're spending the money on the thing that doesn't need it.
And you raise an interesting point, because the way Mass law works for procurement, if you have more than one ad alternate, you have to take them in order. So if you have 3 ad alternates, you can't say, oh, I want alternate 2 or 3. You can't take that without taking 1. Problem is, as we discussed in our joint meeting, we don't even know what would be proposed for what we're calling the 1950 scope at the top of the hill, right? So when Mystic was expanded in 1950, they added to the Main Street building and they did a bunch of work up at the back. And it's that space at the back that's chronically cold. So you're right, Weston and Sampson has said, we don't even know what we would propose until we can get in there in the heating season and take a look. So,
But they do have the grant or the application for the grant for the windows for that second floor annex. So,
Right.
but that doesn't come out until October.
but I think to Mr. Hopcroft's point, it just may have to be its own, like maybe a separate project, maybe separately funded. Plus, there's the issue of ARPA money, which, the clock is ticking on ARPA money as well.
So pretty much the money will be spent on these 2 parts of the building, and this other thing just remains something to do in the future.
It sounds like that will be the case, but it also, I think everybody's really expecting Weston and Sampson will come back with some findings and recommendations. Hopefully not in March. Maybe that could happen in February. Just depends, how quickly it gets cold.
Does the low-end transformer that we're getting for Mystic, I guess we don't have an actual spec on what those couple rooms in the back would be, but assume you had 4 more mini splits in the building, are we precluded from putting heat in those rooms that are cold? Which would say that it's not just a financial issue. If we build out the North Main Street piece as an ad alternate, we might not only be spending our money on that, we might be spending our electrical capacity on that, making it
Yeah,
not
it's great.
possible to do the other one.
So that's a great question, and I think management will have to talk with the engineer about that, because I've had the same question myself. We can't go fully electric at the back of the hill without, more substantial investment. But Weston and Sampson told us back in June that they're not convinced that we can't get more reliable and controllable heat back there with the system that we have. So just the concept simply is pipes that are over 100 years old are leaking and they're falling apart, and we have to shut it down. And we don't want to replace it with more steam piping. we'll replace that with an electrified split system.
For the 75-year-old
But for the
pipes are okay.
rest of it, for the 1950 sort of infrastructure, we don't have the reliability issues. It's more about controllability. So
Okay.
I think the way I have interpreted it is, I think there's hope on the part of the engineering team that they can make some suggestions and maybe some slight modifications to the system that we have to get more consistent and controllable heat up there.
That makes a lot of sense to me. That also argues against doing the North Main piece. Because if you can bring that steam heat to the back, you can bring that steam heat to the front.
I totally agree, and as Ms.
Except for air
Bergstrom
conditioning.
said at that last meeting, you know, that end of the Main Street building has no lack of heat.
Yeah.
That's why they have the windows cracked in February.
Then our students will be back talking about air conditioning, though, because
Yeah.
the steam doesn't provide cooling, but okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, and lastly, actually, do you have are we thinking that the Lynch opening date is in any jeopardy? Because of
We
that
have no
transformer?
reason to think so right now. I mean, there's a reason why you prioritize long lead items, but it has been a growing concern. But we have a newer member of the EFPBC who's in the industry, who's shaken some trees for us, and we'll see what happens here in the next couple of weeks. We still don't have temp power, do we, at Lynch?
No, it's still
We don't even have temporary power yet. And that should have happened already. So there's just something about getting power in Massachusetts. It's tough, but we're on it.
They're on it.
This is a silly last question, maybe silly, but sometimes silly ideas make. The transformer that's sitting over at Parkhurst.
You can't reuse it.
Okay. Well, even for the Mystic? Okay. All right, sorry. Thank you for the
Thank you.
generosity of letting me ask all those questions. And thank you, Mr. Nixon, for the detailed report.
Thank you. Any other questions,
set.
comments? Okay. Thank you so much. That was hot off the press information, so we appreciate it. Next up, Mr. Mayor will be bringing us his draft FY26 budget calendar. It's that time of the year again.
It really isn't.
Well, getting there.
I like the
Mr.
colors.
Maron's just on top of
We
it.
haven't
That's
finished
right.
the first full week of school yet.
I like the,
Okay, that's fair enough.
I like the colors.
Sorry. So, good evening, everyone. So, for you tonight is a revised budget calendar, different from what you've seen in prior years. It was more of just a Word document.
Gantt chart.
It's a lovely Gantt chart.
I love a Gantt chart.
I was going to say, there's
Right.
no
Perfect.
problem that can't be solved with.
With a Gantt chart. See?
Love a Gantt chart.
There are a couple.
I just think it's funny that we're a bunch of Gantt chart nerds. That's all I gotta say.
However, I will note that there is a Gantt chart for the construction project on our house, and it said we were going to be home by Memorial Day, so.
They're not always right.
Yeah, they're not always correct.
You don't know how happy this makes me. It's good. So we kind of work back from the end of January when you have to vote the budget. So that's a day that we can't really move, unfortunately, I think so. But moving back from that, we wanted to start earlier in gathering some feedback from the various stakeholders around the district, through our directors and principals, to our staff and parent associations, and all those involved with this. So these are some rough dates I've put out there for your review. We're hoping to kind of confirm this month, and we'll get started on it. Also included in this is a review of fees. So if you recall, it's been discussion for a bit, with the goal of kind of finalizing that by December to incorporate any changes into our budget, depending on how those conversations go. Let's see if there's anything else here. There are some notes here on meeting dates to be determined. That's looking at the Springtown meeting and any meetings with FinCom. Those come usually later in the year, and we advertise it on the town's website. And I did put a note on we used to have a date for inclement weather, a snow date. So I offer the alternative of having via Zoom. I think we discussed that last year, but if you'd like to move forward with that, that's an option to keep it this year too. So that's it. Any questions? About to go through it.
I appreciate that we're on schedule.
Yes.
I'm very excited by that already.
That's good, that's good.
If we approve it, I guess.
I have one questions just because I'm not seeing it here, and I feel like we talk about this from time to time. So school improvement councils sometimes have ideas that affect the budget.
It's on there.
They're on
Is
there.
it? Where
Yep.
is it?
It is the fourth line down. Principals meet with school councils to review potential budget.
As per Mass statute.
Fourth line, principals,
Second one
directors.
under
Well,
budget
fourth
requests.
white line. I
Oh,
should
fourth
say.
white line.
Yeah, sorry.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. Good. Sorry, I couldn't read it.
Several of you were in our head as we put this together.
Yes.
I mean, I expected it would be
Given that I
there.
knew what line it was on in the
We've t-
document.
Several of you.
We've talked about it enough, so I
Anticipation
figured it
of.
would be there.
Well,
I
thank
think-
you so much for putting that together. I love it.
Great.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Nothing like a roadmap.
I just want to comment that I love a Gantt chart. I love all of you. I think, and I think Mr. Maron's timeline is
a little aggressive.
Is a little aggressive, but I don't want to dash his hopes and dreams. But I just want to say publicly that we recognize that, you know, there's some flexibility in here, even though there's a lot of colors and blocks. Because I think this is the expansion of this, intentional expansion of this, and trying to get feedback, input, and involvement that always makes things take longer. And that longer is worth the effort, without question. So, but our main goal, when we really plan back internally, is to have a solid draft of the budget done by, before we go into the December break. Because that's the time that then we can, really work on trying to refine in preparation so that when we go into January, you have it to work with starting that month, as opposed to what we have been kind of doing, which is, kind of mid-January into the public hearing, into the vote. I also just want to say, and just a reminder, that every one of our units, our 5 negotiating units, are up this year. This is the last year of a 3-year agreement. And we all know that 85 to 7%, some might argue higher, of our budget staff. So that is a huge unknown. That is the budget, and that is a huge unknown for us in terms of, so we're going to have to make some assumptions in the aggregate as we roll forward. If the last, but, I think the negotiation round last time was very good, very productive, very positive, very collaborative, but because of the town budget, the town charter timeline, there's no way we're going to be done. I can't foresee us, I'd love to think we would be, and we could be, but it would be tight to think that we'd have the contracts negotiated by the time you vote on one in the end of January. So just putting that out there.
Well, and I just also want to say that I appreciate that this reflects something this committee committed to last year, which was making sure that we have staff input on budgets as well. Because it was, I think, a little bit enlightening last year when, Dr. Ellen Emma contributed, I think, to some of our input about being able to hear from staff about not just what they need, but what they'd like to have as part of the budget, because we always think of our budget as being very limited in Winchester, and, we don't have the largest per pupil expenditure of our peer districts. And so I think that tends to.
What did you say? We don't have the largest?
We don't have the largest.
That's a true statement.
I was being generous.
True statement.
So I think that it's important that we do talk about what we can't fund, but that what we need and what we'd like to have as part of our budgets too, because very often we hear from the community about things that they're surprised that we don't have, and we always refer back to our budget. So articulating that as part of our process this year, and actually hearing from educators as part of this process back to the committee, I think is going to be enlightening both to us and the community. So thank you for making sure we captured that as part of this chart this year.
I'll just quickly
ahead.
underscore that, because I think that's a really important point. And I will say that, having been around town meeting for a while now, I have observed that there are other places in the community where the gap between where we are currently and where we would like to be is more clearly articulated. I think we, in the school department, obviously I'm new to that but I think it's been, it's sort of easy as a community to not talk about the gaps because they might be hard to address, right? But I think it's important to actually be very clear with folks where those gaps are and what the things that we would very much like our educators to have the ability to operate with moving forward. I mean, to always have a list that if somebody asks and says, well, what are the things that are missing?
Right.
We can say, gosh, we know exactly what those are, and here's the priority.
And here's
that
how
we
much
would-
they cost.
Correct. What is the thing, what is the priority that we assign to that thing relative to other things, and how much does it cost? And then we can have a conversation, I think, about where the best places to place our investments are. So thank you for.
I think that just to, we do think in terms of budget of multi-year budget and planning. We have that list. I have it in a locked drawer in my desk, and I've never dared to take it out as part of the process because,
It's hard to say now.
it's
But
it's been a tight list that has been really internal, like super internal. We've not blown open that conversation over the last 2 years. I think really in that trying to be realistic around the circumstances we were facing coming out of COVID and where we were, and just not really sure whether the support would be there. And also not sure we really had it right, because when we go to staff to get input, they're going to give us input. And, I've said this before, this town, this school department, it always amazes me what people aren't willing to, one, they don't ask for, because one, they don't know that they could even think to ask for it, or two, they've been doing without it for so long that they've just figured out how to do without it. And that's good Yankee pride and ingenuity. However, what it does is it really, it limits the scope of our conversations and what we can think about, because there's no shortage of priorities, certainly. So I'm excited about this process. I think is part of our strategic plan as we've been moving forward and taking those steps. It fits in well with that. It fits in well with the committee's goals. And I just think this is a year to do it. I mean, I think now, whatever the end of this is, what we do this year, I hope, sets us up for the discussions, not just for next year, but for future years as well. Recognizing the town does have some, it is truly a revenue issue, that I think there are ways to figure that out, but if there isn't a conversation about it, then there's not going to be anyone thinking about how to figure it out.
Right.
So we're happy to drive that discussion.
And I thought one of the more interesting parts of Chris's report to us around the capital activity is that, we have a certified free cash number. There's also this move to think about using some of that from a capital standpoint to address some of these longer term needs that have gotten deferred, and we haven't had an identified funding source to get those projects done. So that was an interesting piece of the update. I had sort of heard word of that circulating, but it was interesting when I read through the report to see that was confirmed, that the committee intends to go forward in that way.
So
At
can I
least
just,
seek
for the record,
approval.
that free cash is going towards quote-unquote one-time expenses. And one of the things I really value in the many years that I've been on this committee and on town meeting is there is that common thread when we talk about how to make investments. And we talk about the operating budget, and more frequently than not, we're dipping into free cash to supplement the operating budget, and that does happen. I appreciate that we as a town have a sensibility about the importance of not relying on one-time funds for continuing expenses, and how important it is to fight for the investment so you can fund those ongoing needs in an ongoing way. It it's becoming more and more sort of frequent in the news, how many districts, some in Massachusetts, used ESSER or ARPA funding to cover operating items. Like, honestly, what were they thinking? That faucet's going to get turned off. So glad that
Well,
we
I think
didn't.
this committee had that discussion about our ESSER funding.
Yeah, but
We
it just,
committed not to do it for
it
that.
surprises me that so many communities, when that sort of windfall is there, they put it to that operating expense with no real plan that they're going to sunset those positions, those FTEs, and they find themselves suddenly at a deficit or facing layoffs or what have you.
But Dr. Hackett and Mr. Rowe were very proactive, I thought, 2 years ago, talking about that from the very get-go.
Yeah.
I'd be curious whether I'd be curious whether the committee members or district leadership are the same people that are there now. Because if you know you're leaving in a few years.
I've read in some cases they're not.
Yeah, I know of some not far from here who were put on administrative leave with or without pay, and maybe now are no longer with the district.
So our collective goal is to avoid that from me.
Exactly.
And we're all in on that, I hope. So that's our one vision.
Can I just make maybe a suggestion when this is finalized, and it looks like it virtually is, it'd be nice if the public stuff that we do was something more cheerful than gray, but whatever the final version looks like, because it is so visually digestible, I think it'd be kind of cool to put this up on the district website, on the same page like where we have the calendars.
Yeah.
And then, in fact, parents do go looking for the calendars, they might see the link and click on
We
it
have had it in
too.
the past, just not in this lovely graphic form.
This looks
Gantt
like,
chart.
Not a Gantt chart.
Yeah,
this is
very
good.
visual.
Mr. Mayor, I just had one other thought on here. The color coding seems to just be by what quarter it's in. Is that right? Yeah. Which might be the best way to do it, but I wondered, you might just think if there are other significant, school committee actions or district, there might be different color coding that might draw your eye to different sorts of things. I noticed on the Finance Subcommittee, I thought it was interesting how that action item changes color, but it's because it rolls across a quarter. I just throw it out there as a thought.
Make them gray.
I'm surprised you bring up that level of detail.
Not shocking.
I was going to say, just circle it. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Let's see. Okay. Next is our first reading of Section D, which is policy item. So the policy subcommittee had met September 9th, earlier this week. Dr. Matthews, thank you very much for talking about that a little at the beginning. And we also, in addition to talking about the new construction or hearing about the new construction energy code, we also reviewed some longstanding items, from Section D, Policy DJ on purchasing, Policy DJA on purchasing authority, and Policy DJE on procurement. And then we also touched on Policy JJF, which is the student activities accounts, and Mr. Marin had updated us on each of these. So basically, with these policies, just as some background, over the MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, maintains its online policy reference manual, and and they've sent out periodic updates to school committee members, and I've taken that and just reviewed that against our own policy manual. So the information that you're seeing here is what has come from the MASC, but then Mr. Marin has also added in his perspective and input, I think, from MASBO and from the, I'm going to get this one wrong, the Winchester Student Accounts Manual, Activities Manual, Finance Manual.
Student activity funds.
Student Activity Funds Manual. So.
I can't imagine why you'd forget that.
Just a few. Dr. Matthews, did you have anything more that you would like to add on that? Or then I will turn it over to Mr. Marin.
Oh, I would just like to add that I have obviously only been here since the spring, but my understanding is some of these policies have been worked on for quite a bit of time now. And so I want to thank our chair and Mr. Marin and Dr. Hackett for their work along with other district staff to address these, because it sounds like it's been, in some cases, 3 years of trying to get these aligned.
Well, some of it was waiting for the AG
No,
to come up with
absolutely.
final.
So it's just, this is a
Big moment.
It is a big
pat
comment.
ourselves on the back. We got there. We were waiting for things. It has come through. And we should be
That's right.
very excited that we got these updated.
Yes.
We contemplated
one in
naming this one
particular.
after Madam Chair. The National Coding System for Policies didn't allow it. We were going to do KB, but
Oh, thank you.
And the
There ought to
student
be someone.
activity account one, we've been looking at forever.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm so
Yes.
happy to see the
Yes,
first
you
read
were
of
there
this.
too.
Yes,
Yay.
that we're ready to move on with.
we've always been following the law, just to be clear, but
That
the
is
policy
true.
itself has been.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question? So I know this is our technically first reading. Andrew, you just had your screen up for a moment, and it looked like you were showing track changes. So when I opened it on my
Yes.
PC, I
was-
couldn't see it. So
It's the problem with Google.
I've seen the
puzzled by that,
MASC
too.
mailer. I read the memo. I mean, I get it. It would just be helpful for me as a committee member to be able to see so specifically what's, I mean, we're giving the superintendent more authority, great. But what are the words? Like, if we could see that somehow?
I
It
think,
wasn't showing, it's not showing up for me.
Mr. Marin just shared it with you, so you
Okay.
could see it.
I noticed that too.
Just now?
Ask and you shall
Okay.
receive.
Just now. Thank you.
Yes.
I will look at
Do
that.
you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments on what you just sent me. No,
Sure. I mean,
I
I think it's
appreciate it.
important to share on that topic. One of the things we discussed at our last meeting, which was, in many cases, there were sort of two things that came up. One of them was that in many cases, it's not really practical for us as a body to address the level of granularity that might have been contemplated in some prior iterations or in, sort of, that in practice, probably those things weren't happening anyways in the past. It was delegated to the superintendent. And so that's one thing, is just sort of where are the places in which it's possible for us to say, this is already the process that's happening, it's totally fine with us, and so we trust the superintendent or his or her designee in the future to do that. But also, we're setting this up so that there was one particular conversation, it's not tonight's reading, but the other thing that we're trying to do is make sure that if there's a place where other bodies' documents or other bodies' policies are referenced, that we don't have to then go back and revise the policy in response. So we're trying to put in, that our policy is to refer to whatever current form of the reference is, rather than trying to write those words down in our policy and then have to come back and revisit that down the line. So that was sort of two higher level goals that I think it's important to just put out there.
Right, and we've talked about that for a number of years, I think,
Sure.
where that sometimes the policy is actually, like the policy number will be included in the policy, or something will be directly quoted within our policy from something else. But if that changes, then, or gets updated, then our policy sort of more drifts. So as much as possible, we tried to take anything that was a specific reference, as you're saying, and pull that out, and then just list it under legal references. And in policy DJ, that actually was one thing where MASC had updated one of its legal references. So we just update that at the bottom, and then any cross-references. Although I don't think this time there were any cross-references that came up.
What I was trying to say in a roundabout way is that our chair cares very much about making sure that these things are both specific and also future-looking, right? And I think that's work that is to be commended, because I think this sort of stuff can get really
mind-numbing.
mind-numbing. There is the.
I mean, that just came to mind.
No, and I think there is a drive to try to make it so that we don't have to go through this to the extent possible in the future. So I think we should all be very grateful for the effort that's been going on before and is continuing to go on now.
Before me, Ms. Ferdicchio.
I was just going to say, I appreciate all the platitudes, but it's always good practice for school committees to do a soup to nuts policy review at least every 10 years, so you never really get away from it.
We're on.
But-
And ongoing.
Yeah, and ongoing.
It's ongoing.
And
Get to the end and
the
then
other
you go
comment.
Start all over
The
again.
other comment I would just make is, as we know, MASC is a representative organization, and so, I mean, obviously, we have to comport with state law and federal statute, but oftentimes MASC will make recommendations that may serve 80 or 90% of their districts, but that doesn't mean we have to take it. We can choose to get more specific or go a different route.
And to that end, I had a couple areas that I wanted to deviate from the MASC language, particularly in DJ purchasing. And some of these are, you know, as Dr. Hackett jokes, you know, they're in the details and the weeds, and can't believe I would go there, but.
Listen to him, trying to
but,
back me off before he even starts.
But so right here at the top, it says, it shall be the responsibility of the superintendent. A little bit further down, it says, superintendent will designate, you know, a designee, basically. So broadly, superintendent or designee, I think, would be good. But it says to procure materials, supplies, equipment, and services at the lowest possible cost. And then it's consistent with the quality that's necessary for proper operations. And I thought that sets up, that puts some really tight guardrails around the superintendent or his designee, which I think he should have, that we must go for the lowest possible cost, you know, for the basic bare minimum quality necessary, is how I read that anyway, for proper operations. And I think there may be other factors we may want to consider, such as the last bullet, which is, you know, to promote social and economic goals, such as encouraging local, small, minority, and women-owned businesses to participate in bidding for district projects. Could there be a case of equal quality between a small, local, woman, minority-owned business, equal quality, but someone charges $1 less? And we have to go with the first one. I'd like to give more discretion to the superintendent or their designee to be able to well, I think the intent here is to attain the maximum value for each public dollar spent, is what it says here. And just to provide a little bit more leeway for the district to consider other variables in their consideration there. My only other quibble with this was maintaining the district's reputation for fairness and integrity. I think we should maintain the district's fairness and integrity, and not just our reputation. But those are my little nitpicks with this, just as a committee is thinking about it. I appreciate Mr. Nixon's point about the MASCs. You know, they're a membership association, and they're coming out. I actually went online and looked up that they're a 501c3 because I was like, are they affiliated with the state? You know, are they because they talk about using public dollars, and I was like, is this like a state thing to try to control our use of dollars? But it's a membership association, so it's just a guideline. And so I would just suggest we make it just a little bit more wiggle room.
I'm only chuckling because when I went to my very first charting the course session, which I think was right after I got elected to school committee, I think I asked Lynn Kuchar, where did your money come from?
Yeah.
That always follow the money. That matters.
But by the way, because I looked them up on ProPublica, they only have like a $2.4 million budget. They're a pretty lean.
Hey, weeds,
organization.
I was going to say.
Mr. Hopcroft.
I just feel like we're off track.
I
Sorry.
think we need to.
We're going to audit MASC. We probably ought to.
Policy.
That's right.
Agenda item.
I'm done.
8:20.
I'm dying to respond to the comment Mr. Hopcroft just made.
But can we,
But you
another
do that.
time, seriously, Mr. Nixon?
First reading of the policy.
But the
Is it
policy,
germane to
yes,
the-
not MASC.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll leave MASC out of it.
And that is why this is a first reading.
Point, and he will probably remember at this table, we've had a conversation about owner-agent contracts and owner-contractor contracts.
Yeah.
And this is the poster child for that, because if it's an owner-contractor contract where you're looking to buy widgets, you're looking to buy something whose nature is fully spec'd out, right? And then you are competing on cost. So if there are 3 or 4 contractors that are willing to give you the widget you want, we should get the cheapest widget. That does not apply to services. So if you're hiring an architect, an engineer, an accountant, any kind of professional legal services, or another perfect example, you would never say that's an owner-agent relationship. And I would never suggest that we go for the cheapest one, because you actually might get pretty poor service. So that's one way, I think, just to address. I'm wondering if the reference to service even needs to be there. We should pull out, make that distinction between the owner-agent, owner-contractor relationships.
That would be better.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it's a commodity, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
I would suggest that if you have suggestions on the policy, that's why this is our first reading, then please provide them.
I will.
So,
yeah.
please provide them.
I could send them to you.
So,
I look forward to a 30-minute discussion on this one at our next meeting. Will be good?
Well, if people are good with that, I'm good to move forward.
I really appreciate you raising those points.
thank you. And thank you for the work, Mr. Marin. Really appreciate it.
Glad to help.
Okay. It is 8:18. Anticipated future agenda items. So we will continue to have our elementary literacy update. The FY26 budget development will be unfolding over the next few months, as we just showed. We will be having our school committee goals workshop on September 26th, and we will continue with our town meeting planning. We'll be getting updates on the Lynch Elementary replacement project, and we will also be turning to our forward-thinking caps as we look to the Morocco SOI, Statement of Interest Process Overview. We've said over the past year that we would be seeking to put the Morocco SOI out when that window opens up in January of 2025.
Right, yeah.
Maybe at my dates. But anyway, we're looking at an overview. And the facilities master plan process. We will be working on fleshing that out. Any other future agenda items that members would like to? You can also send those in if you would so choose. Future meeting dates, we have, I see we still have September 19th on here, but Dr. Hackett, I think we had removed
Yeah, we
September
have.
19th.
Yep.
And instead, we'll be having our September 26th goals workshop.
Which, just to be clear, means that there will not be an evening
Not an
meeting.
evening
just to
Yes,
be
that is true.
100% clear.
There is no evening meeting that
Which,
day. So,
Of course, we said earlier in the meeting regarding town meeting articles and our next public meeting being in October, but I just wanted to be
yes.
Yeah.
super clear about that.
Yes, that is correct. And I did, let me see. Oh, I do not believe that there are subcommittee meetings that are coming up imminently, but I do know that the Field Management Committee is planning to have a meeting on September 25th in the evening. And then also, now that I think about that, on September 26th, the Housing Production Plan Update Committee is going to be meeting at, I think it said, 7 p.m. However, that is also the McCall
Yeah.
Middle School Open House. So it's a busy town.
Timeline for the housing production plan update.
That will,
It's being sort of rolled out to the community. Is there an expectation on when it's presented to the select board? It's the select board,
Mhm.
right? That's the authority, having jurisdiction to vote. I believe it is.
I believe so. This upcoming meeting will be the fourth and final meeting of the Housing Production Plan Update team. So I suppose we could provide further info at that time.
It would be
In other words, I would have to
There
check.
is a timeline, Mr. Nixon. I was looking to see if I could
Sure.
find it.
Yeah, I mean, like I thought I was, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
It would be interesting and maybe helpful if the board is voting on that before fall town meeting, but I don't know if that's their expectation. Okay. Just curious.
All I could remember was the date. So,
Final review and vote of the document in late October.
thank you.
That would be in time for town meeting?
Yep,
Cool, thank you.
sure.
Any other or
Oh,
committee?
Housing Partnership meets next week with the, and we will also hear from Climate Action then. That's the affordable housing that Mr. Pruitt was referring to earlier.
Okay.
I'm just going to go see if I, excuse me.
And with that, we still have an executive session. Purpose 2 is to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for contract negotiations with non-union administrative personnel, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. And also purpose 3, of which is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Winchester Education Association regarding the co-curricular stipends. Again, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. And we will not be returning to open session following that meeting this evening, so we will adjourn directly from there.
Move to adjourn to executive session for the reasons stated by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Oh, we're,
Yes, and the vote is unanimous.
for the purposes of the recording secretary, technically Ms. Bergstrom was not in the room for
That's
that
right.
vote.
It was
So just for,
4-0.
so that was a 4-0 vote.
4-0 vote. That is correct.